and then added, "But so are you." The girls looked at each other. Ellen noticed that Austin had already changed into the required costume of the Spofford School of the Dance. This was a short, full skirt of tulle gathered onto a sateen top that had straps over the shoulders. Austin looked chubby in her green costume. Neither girl spoke. "Oh, why doesn't she leave?" thought Ellen desperately. "Maybe if I wait long enough, she'll go into the other room." Ellen removed her jacket as slowly as she could. "No, I can't wait. The others will be here any minute." "This is a silly costume we have to wear," said Austin. "When I took ballet lessons in California, we always wore shorts and T-shirts." "Well, I think it's pretty," said Ellen, as she took her pink costume from the rack along the wall. "Why don't you go away?" she thought. She said, "It's almost like real ballerinas wear. When I'm wearing it, I pretend I'm a real dancer." Austin stood up. "Not even real ballerinas practice in full skirts like these. They wear leotards. In California." "Well, I think leotards are ugly," interrupted Ellen, who was glad she knew that leotards were long, tight-fitting garments. "They look just like long underwear, and I wouldn't wear one for anything. I like our dresses better." "I don't," said Austin flatly. "I don't even like dancing lessons, at least in California." "I don't care what anybody does in California," said Ellen crossly. "I'm tired of hearing you talk about California, and so is everyone at school, so there. If you think California is so wonderful, why don't you go back there?" For a second, Austin looked hurt. Ellen almost thought she was going to cry. Instead, she made a face. "All right for you," she said, and flounced out of the dressing room, leaving her clothes in an untidy heap on the bench. Instantly, Ellen was sorry. What a terrible thing to say to a new girl. What if she herself were a new girl, and someone had said that to her? How would she have felt? She hadn't really meant to be rude, but somehow it had slipped out. She was so anxious to have Austin leave that she had not thought about what she was saying. But now that Austin was gone and Ellen was alone, there was not a moment to waste, not even in feeling sorry for what she had done. Feverishly, she unbuttoned her sweater. She was starting to unfasten her dress when she heard some of the girls coming through the classroom. Frantically, Ellen looked around the dressing room for a place to hide. She darted behind the costume rack. No, that wouldn't do. The girls might see her when they took down their costumes. Snatching her pink dancing dress from the bench, Ellen dashed across the room and into the janitor's broom closet, just as the girls came into the room. If only there was some way of locking the closet door from the inside. Ellen stood silent and rigid. When no one came near the door, she relaxed enough to look around by the light of the window high in the closet. She could see brooms, a mop, and buckets, and a gunny sack full of sweeping compound. Careful not to knock over the brooms and buckets, she leaned against the door to listen. She could hear Linda and Janet and Barbara. Then she heard Betsy come in, and after a few minutes, Amelia and Joanne. Ellen counted them off on her fingers. Yes, they were all there. Trying to move carefully so she wouldn't bump into anything, she took off first her starch plaid dress and then her slip. But she was so nervous that she knocked over a broom. She stood terrified and motionless until she realized that the girls were chattering so noisily they did not hear the thud. If one of the girls had opened the door at that moment, they all would have learned her terrible secret. Ellen was wearing woolen underwear. She was wearing a high-necked union suit that buttoned down the front and across the back. It did have short sleeves and short legs, so it could have been worse. Ellen didn't know what she would have done if her mother had made her wear long underwear. With trembling fingers, she slipped her arms out of the despised garment, rolled it as flat as she could down to her waist, and pulled the elastic of her panties over the bulge. Quickly, she slipped into her costume. "I wonder where Ellen is?"